Welcome everybody to a special episode of The Crucible. This is The Crucible Off Camera. For those of you who do not know, The Crucible Off Camera is our extension of The Crucible with Jeff Marshall as you know it, but it gives us an opportunity to go a little deeper with guests who might not be able to make it into the studio. And today we have a special guest. So let's get to it. Judy, I'm going to read your bio. The reason I read everyone's bio is because those people that know you, they know how great you are. But to the listeners or the viewers who don't know you, I want to give them at least a sample of your greatness before we get into the purpose of the show. So here we go. Judy Jackson, best known for her candid, straightforward approach and her unmistakable laugh, which I'm sure you'll hear today at some point on our conversation, is driven by bringing out the best in others while maintaining her authentic self. She's a well-respected thought leader in the world of human resource management. She's founded JLC Ventures in 2023 to help build inclusive cultures within corporate spaces by supporting growing leaders in their career growth, development, and well-being. As an executive coach, she works with senior leaders to provide the vision and strategy for building an inclusive culture where people can bring their whole selves to work and be respected for who they are. Earlier leadership roles for Judy have included Global Head of Culture at WPP, the Global Chief Talent Officer at Wunderman Thompson, Chief Talent Officer at IPG Media Brands, Digitas, and people leadership roles at Time Inc., ABC Disney, and Planned Parenthood of New York City. She's contributed to several articles on books on human resource management and has received several awards, including, and we pared this list down, just let me say that, including AdColor's 2024 Lifetime Achievement Award and the 4A's 2022 Gladiator Award. She serves on the board of directors for Bridge, an organization dedicated to addressing the gap in belonging, representation, inclusion, diversity, and equity in the workplace. She's a co-founder of We All Rise Together, created to minimize the impact of the pandemic on communities most at risk. She's also the former president of Brainy, an organization committed to elevating rising leaders in the communications industry. And last but certainly not least, Judy is a mentor to many, a friend to most, and an advocate for all. This is Judy Jackson, and this is The Crucible. Welcome, Judy. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
No,
I can't think of a better
you.
person to be with. Yes, thank you. I'm honored, absolutely honored. And I think I know why I'm on your first off-camera podcast.
Why do you think you're on my first off-camera podcast, Judy?
I don't know. Maybe because I don't have on any makeup right now.
You look fine. You look fine.
But that's okay.
You know,
That's okay.
yeah, she looks great.
I get to focus on you.
Oh, that's all right. Well, look, you look great. You sound great. I love the glasses. If you all could see Judy, hair is always fly. She's always got on glasses and always has the best smile. So that is what you're missing of Judy from me not having her on the televised version of the show. But I promise you that this will be just as exciting of an episode. So, Judy, you know what we do here is pretty simple. Like I said, people that know you, they know you well. They've seen you climb. They've seen your success. They've experienced you in many ways, whether it's the wisdom you've shared with them, or it's the moment where you advocated for them. I have been a fortunate recipient of that. But I also know from my own personal experience that all of the things that you achieve or that you do, they don't come without stumbles and falls. And so on The Crucible, we try to make it a rare opportunity for leaders like yourself, folks who have achieved, a lot of success in their career, to take a moment to talk about a crucible moment of their own or their greatest failure, or however you like to frame it. So I'd love to give you the floor and say, tell us about a crucible moment of your own.
You know, Jeff, I'm sure for many of us that's hard because there's so many of these moments. The longer you live, the more you have.
Absolutely.
So I guess the one that has really helped me pivot how I look at myself is probably making the mistake of getting married the very first time. So when I got married, and of course, let's be clear, it's not my husband that I have today, but when I got married in my early 20s, it was as a result of really having lost my parents when I was 16 and feeling like I needed stability and that I needed sort of something to hold me up and something to lean on. And it was a bad decision. It was a bad decision. And it took a long time. It took about 7 years to have the courage to get out of that situation. And when I decided to get out of that situation, my husband at that time said, "You'll be nothing without me." And Jeff, I believed it, but I also knew that I couldn't continue like this. And I knew that if my parents had died so young, and then subsequently to that, a few years later, I lost two of my sisters. And I know it happens to all of us when we have loss, we think about, well, what's the rest of our life going to be like, and how do we want to live our lives? And I just said, if this is what another day, another year, or whatever is going to be like, I can't do this. But I did believe that maybe I won't be anything without this person to be my rock. And obviously, I learned that I can be quite a bit
Yeah, yeah,
without the toxicity around me. And that lesson, I guess I should in some ways say thank you, because that lesson taught me a lot about being resilient, but it also gave me, I think, the fuel to help others realize the power they have within themselves and not to let others define them, and to own the narrative of who they are and who they want to be. We give power to so many people. I know in the work life, we give power so much to our bosses, to even mentors. And we give up so much of that power. And I did that in my first marriage. And it was a failure, but it was like most failures are that you've taught all of us, Jeff, that those failures are what give us our ammunition. They give us our spark. They give us our reason. So
absolutely.
thank you, ex-husband.
Yeah, yeah. He was there for a season. It wasn't, and a reason. I think what was interesting was when you said that you found, that you could be all these things without this person as your rock, and it sounds like, you came to a realization that he was less of your rock and more of an anchor, right? And so just kind of weighing you down.
Oh, absolutely. When you said anchor, I wasn't sure what you meant, but yes,
Oh no,
definitely
I meant
weighing
like
me
a
down.
literal.
Yes, yes, a literal, yes, 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 very toxic anchor.
Yeah,
And what's great is that, when those things happen and you get rid of that anchor, or you get rid of that block, it opens up so many other things. By the time I got divorced, I was in my early 30s. I thought, well, I probably will, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought, oh, I'll probably never get married again. I'll probably never have kids. I'll probably never, ever, ever, ever. And, within 2 years, I was remarried. Sometime after that, I had my daughter, who the whole world, whoever knows Judy, knows about Judy Jackson. so,
uh-huh.
so it just opened up, when we get rid of that toxicity, whatever that is, the job, the person, the friendship, whatever it is, it's so, refreshing, and it just opens up so much for us that we didn't even realize could exist. So, so I'm very grateful that I went through that experience, because I don't know if I would have appreciated, even if I hadn't had that first marriage, I don't know if I would have appreciated my husband, my daughter, my life today had I not had that toxicity.
So like, tell me about like how you navigated, you know, the aftermath of it initially, right? Like you said, you thought you believed
Yeah.
you believed him when he said you'll never be anything, but how did you navigate? Because I'm sure, there was a lot of emotional recovery to be had there. So how did you navigate that?
I think a lot of us use work as our drug or as our savior. So purely by accident, I used work as my place of healing. I put everything into the job, into my career. So I wish I could tell you that I was intentional by design. I said, I'm going to go do this thing. It was my place to feel safe. And because I put so much into my work and into other people, and sometimes, healing, we heal by healing others. Sometimes they say that the best way to get over something is to help others. And so by doing that, my career just started to grow, and I got to, just by osmosis, realize that, oh, I can do this. And by reinforcement of great mentors and great sponsors, and being really lucky to have good people around me that encouraged me. But honestly, the drug of choice was work. Work was my savior. And it was where I put my energies in. And I found that, and I was lucky that I loved what I did.
Yeah.
I was just very lucky that I loved it. And so the rest just happened naturally by, doing great work. I remember being at Digitas, and I had to take this personality assessment. And I felt very uncomfortable because the results of my assessment was that, and this is before it was popular, my assessment stated that I was the same at work as I am in my personal life, that there was no difference. And at that time, you were taught that you were supposed to be different at work than you were in your real life. And I remember thinking, what the hell is wrong with me? How I'm the same no matter what? I need this professional persona. How can I be Judy from Brooklyn no matter where I go? And it wasn't until years later, when the world changed and recognized that being your authentic self was of value, that I began to embrace that. So things just happened somewhat naturally for me without being intentional.
Well, first of all, that's a great story. I did not. As soon as you said that you were the same at work, it was funny because when you said I was the same at work as I was at home, and I immediately thought, oh, that's great. But you're right. During that time, like before the world changed, there was, I wonder
Yeah.
if we even had the a term for code switching, right? Like we knew that's what we know
No,
now. That's what we
right.
were doing, but I don't know if it was terminology at that time. Wow,
Yeah, I don't think I
that's
knew enough about code switching, and I didn't have role models. I didn't have parents. My sisters who were older were not, were no longer alive. They died like a year after my first marriage, so I didn't have people to tell me, oh, this is the way you're supposed to act in corporate America. So it's just sort of just happened, and I guess I got lucky that I worked for people that, most people, not all the time, but in most cases, people that seemed to accept me for who I was. And those that didn't accept me for who I was, those were jobs that I just felt comfortable leaving.
yeah.
Um, and then eventually becoming Judy with her laugh and her Judy from Brooklyn approach became popular, and it became okay
Yeah. Yeah, when
around
you're
many settings.
yeah.
Not all settings, but around many settings, it
There you
became
go.
okay. And then I think the real part of that is, and then I eventually became okay with that too.
I love that. I think that, it's interesting because, for me, well, here's what I would say to you, Judy. The your work product, right, spoke for you, right? At some point, right there, I think there's, it's like two paths that eventually converge. It's like who you are and then
Mm,
your work product. And when your work product speaks for itself, especially nowadays, you have a lot more freedom to be like who you are because
true.
people see you for what you've done and what you're capable of doing. And so I think those two paths likely came together for you. Now it's a little bit more. normalized. But I even still tell young people this. I say, we talk, I mean, you and I have had conversations with other people about the whole idea of bringing your authentic self to work. A lot of times, the work that we've done in the space of inclusion and equity is about bringing your authentic self to work, but it's really about the option, like being able to bring because when you're at Thanksgiving at your grandma's house or whatever, you're not the same at the table as you are with your cousins after after dinner, right? Like who you are with your cousins is a different. Your grandma don't want that at the table.
Right. Their degrees.
So,
But you know what I think we forget about is that when I say my authentic self or your authentic self, I'm also talking about your values,
oh yeah,
So
yes,
like,
you have to be true to those.
so for me, what has helped me in my career, and I didn't realize this till later on, is that what drove me was not my success. What drove me is helping others be successful. So it was easy for CEOs or leaders that I worked with to embrace me because they knew that my priority wasn't Judy. My priority was their success. My priority was helping them find out what are their values. Are they living that? How are they showing up? I got such joy out of seeing them grow and shine and find, their spark, their special sauce, that I think that became sort of, that's sort of but an attraction for them. So they saw me as an agent to
Yeah.
help them be their best. And I saw it as my gift. So that authenticity wasn't necessarily just about like how Judy shows up every day as herself, but how Judy shows up in service of others.
Love.
And that has served me well, again, not intentionally, but because that's what drove me and still
So,
does.
so were you, let me ask this, were you that way? And this might be a yes for you. Were you that way before the relationship ended? Or do you feel like when you started to pour yourself more into work, that's where you found that kind of
I
space?
think, I think it was in me, but when the relationship ended, I found me. So I think we know that, we all probably, if we think back to kindergarten or growing up in school, there are certain traits that we see that we saw when we were young that are still part of us. But sometimes an epiphany, something happens that you embrace those things.
Yeah.
So I don't think it changed me. I think it grew me. I think it gave me permission to find myself and be okay with who that was. For other people at that time, it was about, even now in my own business, it's a lot of, my great friends are very successful entrepreneurs. It's about the hustle. It's about, like, I've had friends that say, man, you got to go after that assignment. Doesn't really matter if it's the people you love or you really like them or it's the work you just got to build your business. And maybe because, I've worked for, over 35 years, I don't do look at it that way, but the hustle doesn't drive me. What drives me is working with the people that I like or love and respect and doing work that I love and making an impact. And I've been lucky that the money just seems to come, but I've never gone after it. So this is not necessarily advice I'd give my daughter, but, I think she's a negotiator. But for me, I guess I'd have to say, the belief in myself, the belief in God, the belief in my values. And I think what I learned from my first marriage, I married because my head told me so, but not my heart. My head said, you need stability. You don't have parents. You're like 22 years old. You're on your own. So my head said this was the right decision. I think what I learned, which is probably not always the best answer for some, but it's the right answer for me, is that I follow my heart. My head has not been the best place for me to reside in making a decision. But when I lead with my heart, I've not been disappointed.
That is very sound advice. And that you should, I'm sure you already have, that you should give your your daughter and our listeners. So I really appreciate that. Because, I think for me, I found, I think I'm a little bit of both. I'm very strategic in, almost everything, how I show up, where I show up at. But heart is a very big part. I have a big heart for, almost everybody. Like at least when I meet people initially, I'm kind of a heart open type of person. I don't really walk into spaces with walls up. So,
Yeah.
and I haven't landed incorrectly yet. so,
I
so
think you're a great balance, Jeff. I wish I had more of a balance like you. Um, I think I'm an extreme. I'm extreme in most things I do. Either I'm like extremely happy or really pissed. Really. Most times I'm extremely happy, but I'm extreme. You're always like, I see you as the calm. You're like, yes, you're happy and you have the heart, but you're like the reasonable heart. You're calm,
I,
and I think it's a
I,
great gift. So
well,
I think
thank
where
you.
you are is where most of us want to be.
Oh,
I want to
well,
be
that's
there.
good. That's good. That's good to know. Some people see it as me being nonchalant, and I'm like, no, you can't. I don't
No,
get too
no.
worked up about too many things. I'm the exact opposite, like when playing sports, though. So that's really,
Oh, well, that's
I
the competitive side.
yeah, yeah. I'm uber competitive with that stuff. But I think I always ask guests, and you already gave some really strong advice, but if I always ask guests if there was one thing that you wanted the folks who are hearing this episode to walk away with, what would that what would that learning from your crucible moment be?
Oh, I wish I had some like really new, impactful, wise words. My words are going to be very simple, which would be to know who you are, discover who you are, and be true to that. Um, when I've not been true to myself or listened to what I think I should be or should do or how I should act versus how I want to act, how I want to be, who I want to be, I've misstepped. So my advice would be is to embrace who you are, but first know who you are. Do some work about what that is and be comfortable in being who you are and be comfortable in being who you're not. Accept that. We fight a lot about, I wish I were, and so just accept it.
Thank you for that, Judy. That's amazing. Anything else you're gonna get on that particular topic, you have to pay Judy for. So
I like that.
yeah, we will. And look, JLC Ventures. I like you can't give away all the jewels right here. We just so we're gonna stick to what we got. Judy, I appreciate you so much for coming on our first ever episode of the Crucible with Jeff Marshall off camera. Wishing you well in everything that you do going forward. But like we've already established, I'm sure that you'll do just great. So thanks again for coming on. Thank you all for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes of The Crucible as well as more episodes of The Crucible off camera. This has been another one. Until the next time, be well, be safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.